Hey there, welcome to Math Time with Ms. B. This is where I show you examples of concepts, break them down, and help you see that math isn't such a scary monster. I'll post a problem a day, so like, follow, and keep coming back to see what's going on. Remember to leave a comment if you have a specific question you want broken down or you want more examples of this kind of problem. Today we are actually doing a requested video on graphing quadratics, so let's get to it. Remember that all of my steps are written over here on the right-hand side, and then I will number them as I do the math on the left-hand side. Okay, so let's get started. We are going to graph a quadratic. This is called a quadratic function, and we're going to graph, and we have to find some information before we do that. The first thing that we're going to do is we are going to find the axis of symmetry. Okay, that is that imaginary vertical line that the quadratic can be folded over to where it's even on both sides. Okay, the formula for the axis of symmetry is the opposite of B over 2A. All right, so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to label my A, B, and C. A is always the number in front of x squared, B is always the number in front of x, and C is always the constant. Okay, so my A in this case is a 4, my B in this case is a -8, my C is equal to 3. Okay, and I just copied those numbers from in front of my x's and my constant. Okay, now I can just plug them into my formula as I need to. So for this opposite of b over 2a, I'm going to have a negative and then b, which is -8. That's why we say opposite, over 2 times my a, which is 4. Okay, I'm going to clean this up. And if you wanted to, you could plug this into your calculator as is and just do negative, parenthesis, -8, close parenthesis, divided by 2, parenthesis, 4, parenthesis. That's why I like putting parentheses anytime I'm substituting a number for a variable. Plug in with using parentheses, and you can use your calculator. So we have a +8 over 2 times 4 is 8, so that is 1. Okay, so if we were to write this in an equation form, x equals 1, this right here is my axis of symmetry. Okay, so that, all of this right here is my step 1, finding that axis of symmetry. Step 2, we are going to find the vertex of our function. So we have, in order to find our vertex, we're going to plug in, I'm going to find f of 1, okay? Remember, this is my axis of symmetry. So I'm plugging my axis of symmetry into my function. I'm replacing x with my 1, so I'm going to use parentheses, and everywhere I see an x, I'm going to replace with 1. 4 times, I'm going to show you in a different color, 1 squared minus 8 times a 1 plus 3. I'm going to clean this up. So I have 1 times 1 is 1, minus 8 times 1 is 8, plus 3. 4 times 1 is 4, minus 8 plus 3. Then collect all my like terms. 4 minus 8 is -4 plus 3, which gives me a -1. Okay, so for my vertex, I'm going to take the 1, that's my axis of symmetry, and the -1, that's my y value. So my vertex is equal to 1, -1. That's my turning point of my parabola, the shape that we're going to do. Okay, so we're going to keep this in mind because we're going to end up plotting this point. So I'm just circling it so I know where to find it. And that finishes out our step 2. Okay, for step 3, we are going to go and find our y-intercept. Okay, Y-intercept is found by finding f of 0. This is to find y-intercept. Okay, plug a 0 in for x, and that's how you get there. Okay, again, everywhere I see an x, I'm going to plug in a 0. So we're going to repeat the process that we did for number 2, but instead of a 1, we're going to use a 0. So 4 times 0 squared minus 8 times 0 plus 3. Same thing. Remember, anytime you multiply by 0, the entire thing becomes 0. So this is actually 4 times 0 squared. That's a 0. Negative 8 times 0 is also 0. So I have 0 minus 0 plus 3. And I'm just showing you what happens when you don't skip steps, okay? 0 minus 0 cancels out. That's just 0, and you're left with a 3. So my y-intercept is 0, 3. Okay, this is where we're going to cross the y-axis on our graph. And that gives you step number 3. Step number 4, we are going to find the x-intercepts now. Okay, in order to find the x-intercepts, we have to either factor and solve, or we can use the quadratic formula. And I'm going to show you both so you have examples. Okay, so if I take my function, which is 4x squared minus 8x plus 3, it's that same function as before. Okay, if I factor that, I can use the box method. Okay, so I'll actually do it right over here. And so here's my box. And I am going to use this to factor my quadratic. Okay, your first term goes up here. Your third term is going to go here. Okay, and then we're going to put our second term right there. So I'll show you. First term is 4x squared. My third term is a 3. My second term is negative 8x. Okay, and that goes out there to the side. Now what we're going to do is we're going to multiply these two guys together, the 4x squared and the 3. So I have a 12x squared. All right. Now what we have to do is we have to come up with two numbers that when you add them together, they give you the 8x squared. And when you multiply them together, you're going to get the 12x squared. It's easier if you start with the numbers you're going to multiply to. Okay, so what are all the numbers that multiply to 12? All right, well, I could do 1 and 12. All right, but when you add those together, doesn't matter if any of them's negative. When you add them together, are they ever going to equal negative 8? No. We could have a negative 1 times a negative 12. That equals positive 12, but that doesn't add to equal negative 8. We could leave it as a positive 1 times 12. That's positive 12, but 1 plus 12 doesn't equal negative 8. Okay, so those don't work. Let's try 2 and 6. Well, when I add those together, that gives me a positive 8, but when I add negative 2 plus negative 6, that gives me a negative 8. These are the numbers we want to use for our factoring. Okay, so this becomes a negative 2x and a negative 6x. Add those together to get negative 8. And then a negative 2x times a negative 6x gives me a positive 12x squared. Okay, start with your factors and that'll make that easier. Then we're going to plug those numbers in, doesn't matter where. I'm going to do negative 2x here, and negative 6x here. Okay. Now what we want to do is we are going to go vertically and horizontally, and we're going to find the greatest common factor of both terms. Okay, so when I go vertically, the greatest common factor between a 3 and a negative 2x is just a negative 1. I'm going to take the negative number with it. When I go up this way, the greatest common factor between negative 6x and 4x squared is a positive 2x. I didn't take the negative this time because we're going to take care of it with the constants, and we don't want our variables to be negative. When I go across horizontally, I'm going to have negative 2x and 4x. That's still just a 2x. And when you go across the other way, I'm going to end up with a negative 3. So my factors end up being 2x minus 1 and a 2x minus 3. This is how you would factor the quadratic we were given, okay? I'm going to set these equal to 0, so 2x minus 1 equals 0, and solve. So I will add 1 to both sides when I solve. Negative 1 plus 1 is 0, so that's why it cancels out. 0 plus 1 is 1. So 2x plus 0 is just 2x. So I'm going to write that equals 1. Okay? And then I'm going to divide off my 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1, so that's why it cancels out. So I'm left with x equals 1 half. So I'm going to plot the x-intercept for this case is 1 half 0. Now we need to repeat the process with our 2x minus 3. So we're going to have 2x minus 3 equals 0. Again, I'm going to solve for my x. So I add 3 to both sides. Negative 3 plus 3 is 0. That's why that cancels out. 2x equals a positive 3. 0 plus 3. And then I will divide both sides by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. That's why that cancels out. X equals 3 halves, or if you're using calculator, you could also do 1.5, 1.5. Okay, so my other x-intercept is 1.5, 0. Okay, those are my x-intercepts. The other way you can do this problem is you can plug them into the formula, the quadratic formula, opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. We can plug into this formula and we will still come out with 1 half and negative 1.5. Sorry, positive 1.5. Okay, so if I do that just to show you very quickly, we have the opposite of b. I'm still using the same a, b, and c from up here when we labeled them. I'm still using a, b, c. Okay, so I'm going to do the opposite of negative 8 plus, we're going to do both, the plus and the minus, the square root of negative 8 squared minus 4 times a, which is 4, times c, which is 3, over 2 times my 4. So if I do it this way, all I have to do is plug this into my calculator as I wrote it. That's why you use parentheses for substitution. Okay? And we have to do negative 8 minus. We have to do the minus of everything. And that would be negative 8 squared minus 4 times 4 times 3 all over 2 times 4. So you have to do the problem once with the plus sign and once with the minus sign. You're still going to come out with these two answers of 1/2 and 1.5. Okay? So those are just two options. This is the quadratic formula. And we will now graph. This is our step 5. So all of this put together, it's a lot, but all of this put together, this was our step 4. Okay. Last but not least, we have to graph. So step 5, this is step 5. I'm just going to label it right here. This is step 5. We're going to graph. Okay. We're going to graph the things that I have in pink. So first thing we're going to graph is our vertex right here, 1, -1. So I'm going to plot this point, 1, -1 right here. That's our vertex. And then I'm going to plot my y-intercept. My y-intercept was 0, 3. So plot that point there. And then plotting my x-intercepts, those are these over here. That's going to be 1/2, 0, and 1.5, 0. So about like this. Okay. And we're going to just connect our dots. Right like that. A little off. Should be there. Okay. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Don't forget to leave a comment if you want to see more of this type of problem or if you have another concept that you need help with. I will talk to you guys on a future video, and remember, you guys got this.